Greetings, my name is François Lépine. I'm a Buddhist bishop in the tradition of Pure Land Buddhism, and I'm quite knowledgeable in Vajrayana, which is the science in Buddhism that gave Kuji-In. Kuji-In in Japanese means 9-syllable seals, and there are 9 syllables, Rin Kyoto Shakai Jin Retsuzai Zen. The syllables in Japanese are a Japanese adaptation in Buddhism, influenced by Shintoism, of what was called once Vajrayana. And Vajrayana is Hindu. The Buddha, who gave a lot of Buddhist teachings, of course, was not a Buddhist himself. He was a Hindu. He was born in India, and he attained enlightenment through the studies of Vedas and meditation and yoga, the practice of yoga. So, and then he gave the Buddhist message, which was about suffering and how to free yourself from suffering. An ancient wisdom of honoring and sacrificing to the Lord, Hindu Lord Indra, which is the Lord of the gods in Hinduism. And Buddhism wanting to strip out everything about the gods, because the Hindu tended at this time in their culture to put a lot of power in the gods and not a lot in the self. So the Buddhists took out the power of the gods from Buddhism, and this is why in Buddhism we seldom mention or never mention the existence of the gods. However, the Buddha did not say that the gods did not exist. For example, in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha says that he was addressing himself to the gods, so he wasn't speaking in the dark. And the Buddha often reference to the Brahma practice, and the Brahma practice is the practice of Brahma consciousness, of awakening the self in the third eye, and to be conscious of what we create by our action, by our behavior, and by our words. So Buddhism went with all its baggage of Vajrayana, where we do not pray Lord Indra, but we pray the power that was supposed to be in the hands of Indra. We pray Vajra. And Vajra is, in English, we spell it V-A-J-R-A, Vajra, but the V is percuted, the lower lip on the upper teeth, Vajra. Okay? So Vajrayana means vehicle of Vajra. Vajra is the most powerful spiritual power, like the most powerful divine power is Om, and the most powerful natural power is Agni. So Buddhism went from India to China, and there Vajrayana and Kuji-In, the 9 seals, were adapted in a tradition that was called Tiantai in China, because it was created and assembled on a mountain of this name, Tiantai. And when the Tiantai tradition went to Japan, became the Tendai, because they write, the Japanese write with their own kanji, their own type of letters, and it transformed a bit the pronunciation of things. So the Tendai tradition transported the Kuji-In. Kuji-In then was very popular amongst warriors and priests. Of course, priests, because it is their faith and their dharma to go through this process. But for warriors, because of the extremely powerful side effects of practicing Kuji-In, which is the amplification of every human potential, and sometimes the manifestation of supernatural feats, as in feats that do not occur in nature, but occur beyond nature, or supernatural. Kuji-In was made popular with the 1980s movies of ninjas invading everything, everywhere, killing everything. And these ninjas, they practiced some form of prayer with their hands, making seals of the Kuji-In, which is this ancient Vajrayana Buddhist knowledge that became popular amongst warriors, and then the ninja movies had to show a bit about their spirituality. The ninjutsu masters are not the holders of the utmost wisdom of Vajrayana. The ninjutsu masters are the upholder of the most powerful wisdom regarding martial arts. Their job and their function is to perpetuate the most powerful training, the most powerful battle-oriented techniques. And the priests are taking care of the wisdom aspect, of the spiritual aspect. So if you think that only ninja masters hold the key to Kuji-In, in fact, ninja masters learn from priests in the Buddhist tradition when they study with the Tendai tradition or the Kuji-In. So so you can trust a ninja master if he teaches you Kuji-In that it is a good way. Okay. Now all these traditions, a lot of traditions, the most knowledgeable people in Vajrayana are the Tibetans. The Chinese have their adaptation influenced by Taoism. The Japanese have their tradition of Vajrayana and Kuji-In influenced by Shintoism. So we have all these different techniques. For example, Rin, the first Kuji-In, uses a mudra, and some people do it with the index, okay? And other people do it with the major finger, okay? So what's the difference between both? Many masters will say that it's wrong to practice Kuji-In in another way than he teaches it. Well, that is not true, because when you invest yourself in a single system, you have to go all the way in this single system, respecting that other systems work too. But you involve yourself in a system, you better continue in this way. It doesn't mean that you're going to screw up yourself if you learn many techniques, because ultimately when you want to become a master of Kuji-In, you have to understand everything about Kuji-In and the difference between each mudras and practice them all. Okay, so it's not true that you're going to screw yourself if you use one finger or another, and if it's this one is good, this one is bad. They're all good. They all have delivered great results, so they should be respected and such. Now, let us speak of an example. Martial artists will prefer the index. The index finger is about expression of power of the self. So it builds self-trust by building this power to express the self strongly or powerfully. Okay, so the martial artists will prefer this one. The spiritualists will prefer the major, because the major produces the integration of the experience of the self and the right to exist fully, which will result in self-trust. And then this self-trust will evolve to a supernatural trust that we will call faith in the self. When someone does not have any control over what's happening, when someone does not know what's going on, he doesn't lose himself. He is in a complete state of faith. His faith into life, his faith into the self, the inner self. So, yes, well, martial artists will prefer the expression of power, but the spiritualists and the evolving people will prefer the major finger instead. So you have traditions, and of course, the ninjutsu practitioners that do use the major will get results, because by using the major in the Rin Mudra, you evolve yourself to a state of self-trust at the point where when you need to express power, you express power, and when you need to settle yourself inside, you settle yourself inside, because the focus of the spiritualist approach or the transformational approach of Kuji-In is about self-transformation into another state of being, a better state of being, while the martial application of Kuji-In is about power, power, power. If someone needs power, he will express power. If someone doesn't need power or is in a situation where he doesn't require power, he will still express power. So this is the difference between using the index or the major finger. Okay, so this is just one example.